Hey, Mike, where'd you get these endless summer movie tickets from?
Whoa, I love those. That's from my Endless Summer box set.
Ooh, where'd you get that from?
The link is in the show notes, baby. Hey, everybody, welcome to the QuiverCast.
You go left, I go right. Man, this wave is out of sight. Going surfing, going surfing, going surfing with friends.
All right, everyone, welcome back to the QuiverCast. We are excited. We have Jeremy Ryan here. How are you, Jeremy?
Doing well, man. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, I'm stoked. Super stoked. So you grew up in Ventura? Is that where you grew up?
I grew up in Port Hueneme in Oxnard.
Oxnard. Okay.
Yeah, but primarily Port Hueneme.
Port Hueneme.
Yeah.
So real quick, and I know the area, is there a big difference in either waves and the crowd between Oxnard and Port Hueneme?
I mean, Oxnard and Port Hueneme, they kind of mesh into the same, for me anyway, into the same place because Hueneme, I mean, it's just a harbor away. It's a small harbor entrance away.
Yeah.
And so different times of the year, you would go to either side of the harbor, basically. Like one side's going to be better in the winter, one side's going to be better in the summer. That's where I grew up, just going back and forth. And then I feel like Ventura is when it starts to separate. And then there's different spots that break on different types of swells. I feel like Hueneme and Oxnard really mesh together as like one.
Okay. What about schools and stuff? Do you guys go to the same schools or different schools?
Different schools. So there was a divide there, but our junior high was the same. So we would get the Oxnard, like junior high, like I went to school with Timmy and brothers. And then once they went to high school, then they split off and went to like Oxnard High. And then we were in Hueneme High. So it was like, yeah, but when we were younger, there was a little connection.
So what's the crowd difference in surfing? So back in the day, Oxnard was super localized. Did you grow up in that localization kind of time?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. Because we moved up there. I'm originally from Venice. And I lived in Venice until I was 10. And then when we were 10, we moved up to Port Hueneme. So I started surfing and that was in 89.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was like in 89. So early 90s is when I started surfing. It was still super localized, but it wasn't as bad as like the years previous.
In the 80s and 70s.
In the 80s, but I still got like the residuals of how it kind of faded out eventually, into like 2000s. Yeah. But very similar, like Hueneme. And I mean, I grew up seeing crazy stuff happening every day, and people get in fights, people getting kicked out of the beach. It was really an everyday thing. And all the older guys that my friends and I looked up to that were in their 20s and 30s were doing the regulating. And it was like normal back then. It's crazy. It's really changed, obviously, these days.
All right. So what's your thoughts on it? Should it go back to how it was, or is it better now, or should it be somewhere in the middle?
I'm not for it anymore. When I was younger, being raised that way, and the people we would look up to, and we respected them. So we just thought this is just the way it should be. And I was a big part of, localism, like I was myself and my friends were the young Groms, and the older guys would have us go do dirty work and kick people out and stuff like that. And at the time it was like, didn't think about it, I was like, oh, we're cool, or whatever it is when you're young, you think like being tough is cool. And then I remember, and this kind of jumping ahead, but when I finally got sponsored and I was traveling, and I remember going to Ireland, it was like the first like trip I really went on by myself, and went with a photographer. And I remember we rolled up to the spot, and we're pull up to the spot. It was this perfect right. I forgot the name of it, but this insane right. There was a castle, literally like an abandoned castle, like right there on the point. Like it was just insane. Nobody out, just perfect. We're just like, oh my God, this is crazy. And I remember we are getting ready to go out, and there was a van parked, and this dude gets out, this older guy, pretty crazy, like long red hair, literally looked like a leprechaun. Like, I'm not even joking, like exactly like a leprechaun, like an angry leprechaun. And he literally just told us, like, you can't, like, get out of here, and just, went off, because we had a cameraman, it was just myself and the cameraman. But like, I remember that. So the cameraman kind of lipped off at him. I was like, well, you going to pay my bills? And it was like this thing going back and forth. And I remember just sitting there and like, just kind of sitting there quiet. And we ended up not surfing because we were worried, like, what is this dude going to do something to our car, And so we left the spot. And I just remember, like, at that moment, like, it just hit me how horrible it is, like the localism at that level, to just, all we were going to do is go surf. Right. Yep. And it's just like in our town, in Oxnard, and places I surfed where there was a lot of localism, like, people just want to come up and have a surf. Right.
Yeah.
And so it just really hit me, like, I had like an epiphany that day. And I just remember, like, this isn't right. This sucks. From that moment on in my life, when I came back, I just didn't look at it the same. I just was just like, and I just avoided it, and I just stayed away from it at that point forward. That was when I was like, it's like 19 or 20. Is when it finally clicked for me. Yeah, it was crazy to see it from the other end, which I had never experienced for 10, 15 years. It's crazy.
That changed your whole perspective. That's good. You do have a surf school. Do you teach people how to surf, or are you more of a coach?
I do everything. So I started off just doing more like high performance coaching. Okay. When COVID hit, they shut everything down. There was nothing to do. The kids weren't going to camps or whatever.
Yep.
I had a few moms say, hey, can you teach my son, my daughter to surf? They want to surf. And I was so against it, like teaching a beginner. I really was like, I just felt so above it. I really wanted to just train like high level athletes, and I really love that. Yeah. And I remember I finally just gave in and did a lesson with this little girl. She was like, I think she was like 9. Okay. And I remember I pushed her into this little whitewash, tiny little whitewash, and she stood up and rode it. And like, the look on her face of excitement and happiness was so amazing. And I remember just like falling in love with teaching beginners. So now I work with beginners, intermediate, advanced, doesn't even matter. Whatever it is, I know I can add some kind of value. Doesn't matter what their level is. And so that's basically what I'm doing now. So it's just like anybody, but it's all private, one-on-one. I don't have coaches that are helping out. It's just me or nothing. Yeah.
SPF Surf School. Yeah. Yeah. The reason I'm asking too is going back more localism, like, a lot of the breaks are overrun with, there's a lot of new people surfing in the last since COVID, really, 5 years.
For sure. Yeah.
How is your area? Is it overrun with a lot of beginners that have a zero clue to what's going on?
Up there, it's still pretty mellow. I mean, right now, currently I live in LA now. I've been down here for about 3 years. Okay, cool. And so I really see the difference between LA and up there. It's crazy as far as the etiquette in the water. Yes. I wouldn't say there's no localism up north anymore. I would just say that it's done differently and it's toned down. Yeah. But you're still not going to be able to just go out, paddle around like what happens at, in LA at El Porto or something, and just get every wave and get in the way. Like, there's going to be a hassle for sure. Yeah. Like, it's not going to be let go, but it's more lenient these days. Obviously, there's more people surfing since COVID, like you just mentioned. Look, I mean, this is the thing I always tell people about localism. Like, you have to show respect. Yes. I don't care what it is, right? Like, it doesn't matter what you're doing. Like, if you're driving in the street, you're driving and you're going to change lanes, like, show respect, hit your blinker, gives people a warning, right? It's the same with surfing. Like, if you just paddle right out to a peak, there's a group of people surfing, you paddle straight out, and then a wave comes and you just turn and take the first wave, and there was people waiting before you, like, that's disrespect in general. Like, it doesn't it's not rocket science, right?
No, yeah,
but so many people just don't get it. They're not aware of the surroundings and what's going on out there. And I think that's like the biggest issue, really. Like most locals don't care if you're not from there and you're surfing if you show respect.
Yes.
Great. And so, and not rolling up with 20 people at once, and, go by yourself or with one person and be respectful, and you'll get waves, and no, you're not going to have any issues. But it's usually the people that just have disregard for what's going on in the water, and then bad things happen,
So that's a good lead in then. So how did you get into surfing, and what was the climate of the beach? I guess we already spoke about it. There was localism, but you were still a kid living there. So how did it all start for you?
Yeah. So, I mean, when I was in Venice, I was just skateboarding.
Okay.
My uncles are part of the whole Dogtown Z-Boys, era. So I was just into skateboarding, and I never got into surfing. I never even thought about surfing until we moved up to Wainimi. Mm-hmm. But my dad was surfing. My dad did surf his whole life. And so when we went up there, he was surfing. But I remember the very first time we went up there, I went to go swim. Mm-hmm. We're like, oh, we have a beach. We're only a mile from the beach. This is great. Yeah. And the water was so freezing up there. Mm-hmm. We're just like, this sucks. Yeah. I was so used to Venice with like warm water. So I started boogie boarding. I had some friends that boogie boarded. And so I just started boogie boarding for a couple of years. One day, my dad, we got out of the water. It was actually at Silver Strand. Got out of the water. I was boogieing. He was surfing. He was talking to some people, and his board was laying on the beach. And I was like, hey, can I try the board? And he's like, yeah, go for it. And my dad never pushed me into surfing or anything. He was kind of just like, whatever sports you want to do it. My dad played football, ran track. So he was just like, whatever. And so I took his board out, and I went out and caught this little whitewash. And I remember first whitewash, I stood up and rode it. And I was just like, man, this is so much better than boogie boarding. It just like right there hit me. But I was really good at boogie boarding. So for me, it was a hard transition to just go cold turkey. So I would go back and forth for a while until I got better. After about a year, I got pretty good at surfing pretty quickly. Like just my skate background probably helped. But, like my dad's he's really personable, and he's really good at making friends. He made friends with a lot of the locals at Silver Strand and at Wainimi. And so it was pretty cool. So at that time at Wainimi, so I don't know if you know Wainimi much, or your listeners probably don't, but there's a pier, and then at the far end, there's a bunch of rocks. And so on the north end.
Yeah, north end. Yeah.
So the north end, so it's called Rockside. So the rock area was where all the older guys would surf. Mm-hmm. The pier was where the Groms could surf and the boogie boarders. So it was always better up at the rocks, though. So we would always try to like work our way up. The kids would always try to work their way up, and then if they worked their way up too far, they would get told to go back down. So you could like kind of sneak your way up. Especially if you're on like a boogie board. It was rare that you were able to go up there and actually surf. But my dad was like friends with the locals. So myself and my friends that I started surfing with got a hall pass. So we would be able to actually go up there and surf. And that's really where we were able to progress really fast, because it was uncrowded, lots of waves. The waves were better up there, and we just got to just surf a ton. That was how we were able to like get into that area and be successful in the water, because everyone else that would try to come up there would just get like told to leave.
Yeah.
So
who are some of the guys you were surfing with? You remember?
Oh man, a lot of people that your listeners would know. Right. There was a couple. There was a old school shaper named Butch Towers. He was the first one to sponsor me.
Oh wow, cool.
Yeah, he made me a free board. Like I was surfing for like a year, and he made me a free board.
Oh, that's super cool.
He saw like the potential, and asked my dad if he could make a board for me. It's super cool. So yeah, guys like that. And then this guy Mike Johnson, which he's just super underground local, insane. Like to this day, probably one of the most talented surfers I've ever seen.
Okay.
In my life. Like he's the guy that would go down to Leo Carrillo and surf in the afternoon and sit so deep that he would take off so far behind this rock.
Yep.
And for your listeners, if they don't know, there's a huge rock and most people just sit right off of it and take off next to it.
Yep.
He would take off so far back. He'd be pumping, flying down the line and have to high line over it, like to get around the rock. And it was just something about how he could read waves that I've never really seen. Like maybe Tom Curran.
Well, it's funny you said that.
Kelly, yeah.
So one day, and I never really tell stories, but I'm going to tell the story. So one day on a big old South Swell, we were camping at Leo Carrillo. And here comes Sean Thompson. Just like you said, way behind the rock, so far into it early. So
yeah,
certain guys
just have, like they, just like reading. Like one other crazy thing that happened, I remember when I was young, I've never forgotten it. I've never seen anyone do this since. Was the guy Mike we're on the south side of the pier at Wainimi, and he was surfing through from the north side, and he came flying through, shooting the pier, and halfway as he was about to come out, he just started a roundhouse, and he did a full roundhouse out and then went back under the pier and finished the turn. I've never seen anyone do that. And
that's right.
And that pier, if you know the pier, the pilings are tight. It's not like Huntington or something. Like they're way tighter.
Yeah, way tighter
together. Just some things like that I've never forgotten, memorable. And there's some special surfers there that were just underground, that anti-contest, anti-everything, but just surfed really well.
White boards, black wetsuits kind of thing?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
That's so rad. Because you never hear about Port Wainimi. It's just kind of this off the map kind of place. But
it is. It's such a small. It's like a pass through town. It's like there's really nothing there. The only thing that's there. I mean, there's a port, obviously, so it's, you have ships coming in, but there's not good restaurants. There's a couple now, but like it's not known for like restaurants. So there's a beach, but it's usually not that good, honestly. Like we used to call it Walnimi because it's always walled.
Yeah.
So it's like there's just not a lot there. So everyone just skips and goes by and goes straight to Oxnard and then Ventura,
Right. And south of the pier, that whole stretch, does it get good ever?
It used to. I don't know if it does anymore. I never go.
Okay.
When I do go and surf there, I just surf, either the pier or between the pier and the rocks. Like I never really go down there, but we used to as kids. We used to go down there and camp and surf way down there, like towards radar towers and towards the power plant. And sometimes it'd be really good. Some years it would just be terrible. It was really hit or miss. The way the sand moves there, it changes so frequently. It's hard to really get it when it's good.
Yeah, right on. All right, so you have this growing up in this pretty tight-knit group of surfers. You kind of start late compared to like kids now that are starting at 3. You started at 13, right?
Yeah, 12. Yeah, 12.
Yeah,
really
12.
13, like dedicated at 13, yeah.
When do you start doing contests, and how do you do?
I started doing contests like a year into surfing, started doing NSSA, Gold Coast.
Okay.
I did terrible. I've only won literally, I think, 2 amateur, maybe 3 amateur contests ever.
Wow.
Like I just had no clue what I was doing. And, as far as like surf skill goes, like I was right up there with whoever was winning, but I just didn't understand that it was a different strategy. I was watching Taylor Steele movies and I was watching one move, and now that actually works. Like the way the judging system, the criteria has changed. Now it's like degree of difficulty, but then it was like 30 turns to the beach and, and like, it's so different. It was so different. And I just didn't get it. Like it literally, I didn't have a coach. My dad didn't have a clue about contests. It was just me trying to figure it out, watching the Bud Pro Surf Tour, but like, like it doesn't teach you much, the way it is now. It's like with the WSL. So yeah, I did terrible. I mean, one of the 3 contests that I won was the biggest one you could pretty much win, which is nationals. So I got lucky on that one. And then I was just like, I'm out. I'm going to stop doing the amateur. I'm just going to go pro. But it was a tough journey until then.
The other question, the part of that question is, Why did you do contests, especially living in an anti-contest environment?
Everyone was really supportive of me, to be honest. Like,
yeah,
I never had anyone say anything. Butch Towers, my shaper, was definitely an anti-contest guy, but he wanted me to do contests. I feel like everyone wanted like a local hero, you know, like somebody to do something in that town, because I think really in the back of everyone's mind is like they saw the guys like Mike Johnson that had the talent to go pro and get on the CT for sure. Like if his mental space was different and he was really driven to be good at comps, like he would have just crushed it. I guarantee it. He would have been a household name. And there's a couple other guys too that are the same thing, but you know, there was a little bit of like embarrassment to do that. It's kind of like you're trying to be this pro guy or whatever it was. It was kind of like a negative thing. For me, like, I didn't care. I knew I wanted to surf my whole life.
Yep.
And I didn't want to have a job.
There you go.
So I was like, well, how else can I do it if I don't turn pro? So when I was young, I was just like, I just want to get paid to surf. That's just what I want to do. So whatever I got to do, if I have to do contests, like I'm going to do contests, you know, like that was just my mindset.
That's cool. But you win nationals. So how was that? Did you shock everybody, or did you know you were going to win?
I shocked myself.
There you go.
I'll tell you a funny story about that. So I had no luck in amateur events, you know, prior to that. And I did nationals 2 years prior. 2 previous years, and I lost first heat, dead last, out. At that time, I was snowboarding a lot.
Okay.
And I was getting pretty good at snowboarding. I was still skateboarding, but snowboarding was like, I was getting really good at snowboarding. And I had a few friends that were really good at snowboarding. And so we're snowboarding a lot. I was starting to think, man, maybe I try to just go pro snowboarding.
There you go.
I was starting to kind of like get the doubt with surfing, because I just could not do anything in a contest. And even though I felt like I would free surf with these guys and I'd be like, I'm just as good as these guys, like, or better than some that were like crushing it. And I'm like, what's going on? Like, I don't get it. I had like mixed feelings about it. Like I bit of confidence and then a lack of confidence, and I wasn't sure. So I was snowboarding a lot. And I remember I told my best friend at the time, I was like, I'm going to nationals this week. I said, if I don't make the final, then I'm going to just focus on snowboarding. I'm just going to just give that up, and I'm just going to focus on snowboarding. And I go, but if I make the final, then I'm going to sell all my snowboard stuff and I'm going to go full speed on surfing. And I told him that. And so I went down there with my parents. First heat, right before I paddled out my first heat, I saw Mike Lamb. So I don't know if you know Mike Lamb, but Mike Lamb's an old school surf coach.
Yeah, rips,
worked with insane athletes over the years. Yeah, I'm not going to name the names, but like just really, really high level athletes. And so I saw him down there, and I knew him from the area, like, you know, friends of friends. And so I saw him, and he's like, hey, what's up? He just gave me a little bit of advice. And he basically was just like, I just want you to go, and I want you to just hit it right next to the lip every time, and just stay right in the pocket and just hit it right there, and just go vertical and just hit it right there. That's all he told me. And I go,
that's right.
I was like, at this point, I'm like, I'll try anything. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing here. And I went out and I did it, and I won the heat. I got 2 good waves. I won the heat. And I was like, crazy. Like, and nothing changed. Like, all I did was change my approach, you know, and my tactic of what the way I was going to surf the wave. And so the next heat, I saw him again on the beach because he was coaching other kids, you know, and he just happened to like talk to me. And he's like, hey, do that same thing again. Just do this. I did it. I won that heat. I won the next heat. I won the next heat. And I ended up winning the whole contest. And I was just like, that's when it's like, it just clicked for me that you have to change your approach and your mindset. And the skill level is not even as important. Like if you can pick the right waves, do exactly what the judges want to see and not fall, like that goes such a long way, you know, and everyone kind of overthinks it and tries too hard, which is what I was doing for all those years. And just breaking it down and keeping it simple was game changing for me. So I ended up I won, came home. I sold all my snowboard stuff. I didn't snowboard for 10 years. Didn't snowboard for 10 years. I just got rid of it all and I just committed. And yeah, it was cool.
That's rad. So then you turned pro. How does that go?
Yeah, so I started riding for MCD. Same time Andy Irons was riding for him. And
wow.
So that was really cool to be part of that team. And yeah, it was a small deal. It wasn't like, it wasn't a huge contract, but it was cool. I got a travel budget and made some money and got to experience being pro. And then I just kept trying to do comps and tried to make it, really wanted to make it on the CT. That was my goal. It was always my goal.
Yeah.
I loved competition. I'm not very competitive in general, but I love testing my skills that I've been working on, for the month prior, and then testing it against the competition, like for myself. So I'm like more competitive against myself than anything. And I just always want to improve. So I love comps for that reason, but yeah, that was the start, that was the start of the traveling and the lifestyle.
So where'd you get to travel to? Where have you been?
I've been to Ireland, Hawaii.
That's right.
Australia. Yeah, Ireland was insane. That was still to this day one of the most amazing trips I've ever been on. Yeah, Australia, El Salvador.
Wow. I
mean, there's still places I haven't been. I haven't been to Costa Rica yet, which is like the new place everyone goes to. It seems like everyone I know is it's either Nicaragua or Costa Rica right now. And I haven't been to either of those. So yeah, I still got some places. I haven't been to New Zealand yet. I really want to go to New Zealand, and there's still some spots. I went to Fiji. I actually just went to Fiji. I went to Fiji this last year, which was for the first time, which was amazing.
So does it matter what the water temperature is? You don't care? You just want good waves? I
want warm water. I'm not a fan of cold water. The thing with Ireland that would trip me out was we went in October. It was like the end of October. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't any colder than February in Oxnard.
Yeah.
Like it literally wasn't. Like I wore a 543 wetsuit, Japanese suit, which was like super stretchy and really warm, and booties, and that was it. And I think I got like a couple ice headaches the whole trip. So I was really surprised that it wasn't as bad as everyone made it out to be.
Yeah. It probably gets a lot colder in February there, but still.
I heard in like February you can't even surf. It's like too cold. So that we were in that transition where it was swells were starting to come in. Yes. It was starting to get colder. It was like that perfect temperature.
Right on. You're enjoying your pro. Would you consider it a career, or like how would the pro thing? Were you doing mostly like, what I mean? The contests are one thing, but then you take pictures and.
Yeah, it's
like a free
surfer. Being called pro is crazy in surfing.
Yeah, I guess.
It was a combination. It was. I never really had sponsors that wanted me to do all the comps.
Okay.
And so it always kind of bummed me out. Like I never had like I never rode for like a Quicksilver or a Billabong and like a company that had could give me a huge budget. It was always like the smaller brands, like MCD. When I was riding for them, my first sponsor, they went bankrupt.
Yeah.
They were paying Andy so much. The owner was doing whatever. And I lost that sponsor. So yeah, it was hard. It was hard being in that town up in Oxnard and Wainimi. It's such a small hidden town. Mm-hmm. There's just no industry there unless you're just like extremely, extremely talented. Like you're a freak, like Tim Curran or Dane Reynolds. It's really hard to, really crack and kind of get out into the world and really get a solid big sponsor because you're just hiding up there. And that was one thing I didn't really understand when I was younger. I thought you could just surf really well. I thought I could just surf like Kelly Slater and I can have an insane career. And that's not what it's about. It's about how do you help sell product for the company you're representing? How are you marketing, helping the company market and branding, brand awareness. And when I'm just surfing a spot with 3 of my friends out every day.
Yeah.
And there's no YouTube, there's no Instagram, there's nowhere to promote my surfing. It's like it's not even happening. It's like if a tree falls in the forest with no one around, does it make a sound? Like who knows? Right. And it's the same thing. So that's where I really went wrong back in the day that, in hindsight, looking back, like that was one of the things that I think held me back from really getting like my full potential in the surf industry.
Yeah. That totally makes sense, actually.
Yeah.
With that being said, you have a clothing company. So you have this company, Ruit. Yeah. What inspired you to start your own clothing company?
Just over the years, writing for different companies and doing the warehouse walkthroughs, I'd go in there and they'd be like, here's a box, pick out 15 items. And I'd go through and like some of the stuff would be amazing. Some of the stuff I'd be like, I don't want to wear that. And I was just always like, I've always been into design. I've always like painted all my own boards. I've always would sit in class and just draw. Like I've always been artistic. Mm-hmm. And so I always thought it'd just be cool to design stuff that I would want. When I turned 30, so kind of jumping ahead, but when I turned 30, the company I was writing for at that time, another one, went bankrupt. They were paying me the most. I was in a good place at that time. And they just went bankrupt. I was like, oh, shoot, like, what am I going to do? Like, I had no backup plan. I didn't go to college. I didn't do any of that. I just focused on surfing. And
yeah,
I was thinking, like, okay, what am I going to do? And I knew I loved design. I loved art. And so I was like, okay, maybe could be a graphic designer. I went to school. There was a trade school in Ventura. I went to trade school for graphic design, web design, and marketing, just get like a crash course. And so I did that. And then I started my own design agency, started doing graphic design and websites. From there, after a few years, I was just like, why don't I just start a clothing brand and sponsor myself?
There you go.
And make stuff that I like. And so that's basically really how it all started. And now it's, we're 4 or 5 years in of really with this name. The name was what took so long. It's like, it's so hard to come up with a name these days because everything's taken and trademarked, and I wanted to do it right. And so we had 2 other names prior to this that actually had to be changed. And so we finally came to this. But yeah, I've been doing it for like almost 10 years now, just clothing, but like it's changed. And now we finally have it in stone. Ruit. It's awesome. I love it. I love representing my own stuff.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
You have control over it, and you're putting out there what you want to put out.
Yeah, exactly.
What is the state of the surf industry now, like clothing, wetsuits, all that kind of stuff?
I can tell you my thoughts. I don't know what the exact state. It doesn't seem very good. I mean, when you have like major brands going into Costco,
yes,
it's kind of crazy, when you think about it. This kind of stuff's been happening forever. I'm not surprised about the Costco thing. It's like Ross is literally a Costco. Like if you want to really break it down, but that's what the brands do. They overproduce. The stuff doesn't sell. They have to do something with it. They don't want to just light it on fire, or just give it. I mean, they could do giveaways, but they're going to be burning so much money that way. So they try to sell it at a discounted price. Like, I get it.
Yeah.
I'm not sure exactly how it works at Costco, but it's just another way to sell product. The one thing that I've learned so far about just having my own clothing company is it's really hard to sell t-shirts.
Okay.
Like, there are t-shirts everywhere. Like, and Ross, like I'm guilty of that. I've gotten some insane clothes at Ross over the years, because it's cheap. I don't want to spend $40 some on a t-shirt. I don't want to spend like $60-$70 on pants. You can get some really cool stuff at Ross, and I get it. But I do think there's something coming back a bit from back in the day where people don't want to really represent these sellout brands. I'm sorry, just the fact that you see brands like Dane's Brown, Former, and now 2% Crew just started dropping. Julian Wilson's got a brand. Florence. I mean, John John's brand's great in the fact that the way they've really niched down and they're really targeting the watermen, and I think it's great. I mean, I think it's great. I'm not going to knock it at all. It's just different, from what I represent for my brand.
Yes.
But it's super cool because all these different brands have their own, sub niche and kind of vibe and style, and they're not sold out. They're made by the people that are doing the sports. You know what I mean? Versus just some corporate people sitting in a room with ties on that don't surf or skate or snowboard or do whatever. And they're just looking at the numbers and they're just trying to figure out versus actually they're out there getting it and doing it. So I really respect everyone that's been starting these brands and jumping in, because it's, especially if you're like if you're an athlete, you're not a businessman,
right.
like, and I'm learning, I basically just am like, got thrown into the fire and I'm trying to figure it out, and luckily I have a couple of mentors that are helping me that have been in the industry forever, like in the streetwear industry and also in the surf industry and clothing. And so they're kind of like the ghost in the machine for me when I need some help.
Yeah.
That's been really helpful to just be smart, not do things like overproduce and then just be stuck. And oh my God, it's like one of my biggest fears with the clothing company is to have a ton of product and I'm just sitting on it.
Yes.
So that's where I shifted more towards like a print on demand model, and then really, really small runs only on the products that I know are best sellers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then just be smart and move slow and smart.
I think the core surfer wants to buy from a core surfer, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I'd much rather spend an extra bit of money to buy a Ruit than opposed to the Billabong now, or, what you said, the O'Neill or whatever.
Right.
In my opinion.
Yeah.
Now maybe the COVID surfer is a completely different person and they don't care what they're wearing.
Right.
But I mean, so I think it's a good time for you to really build your brand, which I'm stoked for you.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. I mean, I love it. I love branding. I love marketing, and I love that it's so hard, because if it was easier, then there'd be that many more people doing it. And so I just know it's just time, like you just got to grind it out and keep looking for opportunities. And I've said this before too. It's like Ruit's never going away. Whether no one ever buys it again, I'm still going to make it for myself. Like, you're always going to see me wearing something that says Ruit. At the end of the day, if it doesn't pan out, I'm totally cool with that too. Like, I'm not going to stop making it. So it's kind of one of these things where it's for me now. It's not out of necessity to make money. It's more like out of passion. If it blows up, that's amazing. But if not, it's okay too,
What is your end goal? I mean, you kind of just said it right now. It's for you. But do you want to get into surf shops? Like, are you in surf shops? Like, what would be the dream?
We're in one surf shop in Oxnard. I'm not trying to pursue getting in shops, because then we start talking about production, and we're going to have to come up with quite a bit of product up front. And I like doing it online right now. I'm pretty happy with it. It's easy.
Perfect.
It's keeping everything tight. But eventually, I mean, it'd be cool to walk into a shop and see our little zone and with the branding and see people sifting through it and maybe buying something, The other day, I just saw somebody randomly that I didn't know wearing a Ruit hat in LA. And I thought that was the coolest thing, because I've seen that in like my town, but I've never seen it in like a town that I'm not from, especially somewhere big like LA. And it was super cool.
Yeah. Did you say something to the guy?
No, I was driving by. He was leaving the parking lot, and I was and I wanted to say something, but he was gone. I was gonna be like, "Hey, that's a sick hat. Where'd you get it?"
Yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah,
right on.
Yeah,
you have another job. It's called a Subtide Agency. What's that about?
Yeah, so Subtide's digital marketing agency. We do everything from Facebook ads, Google ads, SEO, web design, anything that has to do with marketing digitally. And we're primarily right now working with like home service industries. So deck builders, window installers, contractors, painters, just anything that has to do with home service or home improvement.
How'd you get into that?
What, the marketing, or just that niche?
That niche, the whole Subtide.
Yeah. So we started, and we worked with a lot of other brands. So we've worked with Nike. We built a website for a Jordan brand, worked with Red Bull. So we've worked with a lot. We've worked with some clothing companies. We just kind of fell into the home service industry. We had a buddy that was a plumber and started working with him and started getting really great results. And then another friend, and we just know, being surfers, there's so many surfers that we grew up with and know that are in like the home improvement niche, and drywallers, painters, it's roofers. It's very common. we just kind of were like, well, this is very simple. Like we have a really good system that delivers great results. It's simple. Like it's not complicated. Like we've worked with like other clothing brands where it's like, you have to learn the brand, you have to figure out the branding. Like there's so many little variables where, look, right now we just need to get you leads for your contracting business. We need to qualify your leads, bring them to you, and then boom, close them. It's very simple. And then it's just either Facebook or Google ads and some SEO, so it's a bit more simple. And we just figured, instead of banging our heads against the wall, trying to figure out every industry, every brand, let's just stick to some, what we know.
It. I like that.
Yeah.
That's cool. Right on. You commentated some of the WSL events?
Yeah. Done a few. Did the Jax Pro a couple years.
That's cool.
It was a cool experience. I'm a very quiet person. I'm not, in some way you could say, I don't want to say the word shy, but I'm definitely not like trying to jump out and be talking for 8 hours a day at a contest. Like that's not my thing. I'm a little more like, I'll just go chill out and hang out and watch. So it was, for me, like, I remember when they offered me the job and I didn't want to do it. And then the fact that I didn't want to do it, I was like, you know what? If I'm uncomfortable about this, I probably should do it. That's really my philosophy these past like 6 or 7 years. I've really been focusing on getting out of my comfort zone as much as possible. So if I feel uncomfortable about something, I need to just do it.
All right.
So, but yeah, it was a great experience. It was awesome. Yeah, it was easier than I thought, once I started doing it. And yeah, it was cool. I wouldn't mind doing a few more of those, but it's hard, man.
It's a long day.
And when it's flat, it's so easy when there's waves because you can just keep talking. But when it's flat for like 15-minute lull, you just you can't stop talking. So you're just trying to think of things to say, and you're like checking the surf report again. And it's like, we've checked it like 15, 30 times this whole day, but it's like, you got to fill the space. So that part was a bit challenging.
Now, do you have to know like who all the up and coming, because these are QSs. So you have a lot of the up and coming pros or kids that are turning pro or about to turn pro?
Yeah. It helps. Like I don't follow it as much as like the younger kids. Like I do now more because I'm coaching. So I'm at comps now and I'm seeing them. But like at the time when I did the announcing, like there's a lot of kids I didn't know. So I was literally, and it wasn't just me, it was like my partner that was sitting next to me. We were both like going on their Instagrams and going, oh, okay. Oh, he rips. Okay. And then you get a little bit of insight. He gets coached by this guy. Oh, okay. And then you have a couple things to say, but it was like on the fly. We're trying to like learn, and
that's funny.
It's pretty funny. Yeah.
What boards are you riding right now? And how many boards do you have in your quiver?
Right now I have about 12 or so. I'm riding for Roberts. I've been riding for Rob for like 10 years or maybe a little more. Yeah, I got about 12 right now that I kind of rotate back and forth.
What's the dimensions on those? Are you mostly just short boards?
Yeah, I've never been one to get like fishy boards and stuff like that. I'm kind of just like standard short board. If I can't, if the waves are too small to surf, then I shouldn't surf. That's kind of my like I've never ridden longboards. Like I think I've rode a longboard like 5 times in my entire life. Like I just have no desire to ride a longboard. Like it's so boring for me.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, I just have no.
That's funny.
Maybe on the right. Maybe I don't even know. I wouldn't even want to do it at Waikiki. I'd rather just go get a Mai Tai. I don't know. But yeah. So I usually do like 5'11" and 18 3/4.
Okay.
Very standard. A lot of rocker. Usually about like 28.5 liters, which is borderline small for my height. I like to sacrifice paddle speed for control.
Yeah.
I always like the feeling that my board's a little small for me. It's kind of always been my thing, but I've been thinking lately about maybe getting a little more volume just to kind of see how it feels.
Well, how much you getting in the water? Are you still getting in the water a lot?
Yeah, I mean, not as much.
I think volume comes with not as much, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, we have a 17-month-old baby boy.
Yeah. Cool.
So that definitely,
of course,
that takes some time out.
100%.
Luckily I coach though, and I'm teaching. So I'm at the beach a lot. So I don't have those like 4-hour sessions, every day like I used to. And I'm definitely not surfing twice a day, but I can get out there like once a day. So I'm maintaining. I honestly still feel like I'm surfing the best I've ever surfed. I went through a little phase after my son was born for 6 months where there wasn't a lot of surfing. I'm not sleeping. I'm just not in great shape. I didn't want to work out. I'm lazy. So there was a time period where I started to feel a little decline, and I didn't like that. So I've been, for the past 6, 7 months, 8 months, I've just been on it trying to get back in the surfing shape, and surf lowers yesterday, and
wow, okay,
got a couple of waves. It was awesome. Yeah, I had a coaching session, and then I got to surf. Okay, so it was great. Yeah, as long as I can get my fix and get a couple of waves, I feel pretty good.
Let me ask you this from a different perspective: how has surfing changed? And maybe you already kind of just told me, but mentally for you over the years, have you ever burned out on it, or you're at the beach all day long coaching? Do you feel like catching a wave, or are you just ready to go home? Does that make sense?
When I'm at the beach all day coaching, I definitely don't want to surf.
Right. Yeah.
Like I'm over it. But the way I'll do it is I usually will surf prior to the Okay. So like if I have, if I'm coaching, like let's say I'm coaching some beginners, I'm going to be swimming with them with the soft top. Like I'm going to surf before. I've surfed after, and it's just crazy. Like my legs are just like heavy, and I'm sluggish, like because it's a lot of work swimming, pushing, like you're walking on the bottom. It just kind of burns you out and you lose that quickness. 100%. I try to surf prior, but if not, if it's good, I'll go out and surf after. It just depends on how it is. But I'm definitely like these days, I'm way more grateful when I can go surf. I feel the water now when I paddle. I breathe it in. I soak it up because my time is so limited that even if it's not that good, I'm just so happy to be like laying on my board paddling out and knowing I can catch a couple waves. It just, my boards are great. I always have fun when I surf, and that's a huge thing for me, is just that time in the water is so good for the mental.
Yeah. I went on your Instagram just scrolling it yesterday, the day before. There's this old classic picture of you with the boogie board, and you have the ape gloves on. What's up?
Yeah, that was sick. I randomly found that. My mom sent it to me, and she's like,
"That's funny."
I was like, "What the heck?" Yeah, that was epic. That was my first like legit boogie board. I think it was like a Ben Severson.
Okay.
And then the bright fluorescent Rip Curl wetsuit, which I was so pumped on, which gave me the worst rashes ever. I never got a Rip Curl after that wetsuit. I was like, this is the worst suit ever. And then it had the zippers on the side because I was so small. And then the ape gloves, because there was a couple pros like Glenn Winton, Mr. X. I don't know if you remember him.
No, I told you. He's been on the show.
No way. He was the ape glove man. I used to see him surf, and I'm like, oh, he's ripping. Look at those gloves. He must be paddling faster or whatever. And so, that was a classic picture, man.
Yeah, right on. Yeah, the ape gloves killed me.
I had to post it. I saw it, and I was like, oh, I got to post it.
100% you had to post
This is too good. This is too good.
And then the other thing is, I noticed on your Instagram, and I'm not saying you have a problem. I'm sure you don't, but you like to gamble. It seems like.
Oh, yeah, no, I love poker. I really love poker. Okay. I got into poker, a while back, like in it was like 2004. We had a really cool group of friends that all played. We all started at the same time. And so we had like a Friday game every Friday night. There'd be like 10 of us that would play, and small stakes, like $5-10 buy-ins, but just like really fun. It's like the camaraderie of like playing poker. And there was a time when I was paying all my bills playing poker for a long time.
Really?
Yeah, I was pretty serious. Like I would study it, Basically everything I do in my life, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to try to be the best at it, like the best I can be at it. Yeah. And so there's nothing I do where it's that I don't approach that. Like if I decided I want to start playing tennis tomorrow, like I'm going to study like tennis. Like it's just kind of what I do. So with poker, especially since there's money involved and I don't want to lose my money, I thought studying would be a very smart thing to do.
Okay.
And luckily, it was a profitable, endeavor for what I did.
Like
but I'm not a gambler. It's just I'll never play a slot machine. I'll never play blackjack. I don't play roulette. Like I don't gamble. That's like the only thing that I would do. There's enough skill in it where if you're good, you'll make money. You won't lose money. So it's funny.
Fair enough.
It's funny you saw that.
Well, yeah, it was a couple different posts, and I'm like, this dude loves to gamble. But maybe I take it wrong. It wasn't gambling; it was poker.
There's some gambling, of course, but it was strategic gambling, I guess you could call
it. So now I just had a new question come to mind about you. Yeah. It seems like if you like something or you're into something, you're 100% in. Like I guess you just made that statement, basically. Does that take the fun out of it? Being so hardcore into whatever that is, surfing, boogie boarding, poker.
No, I mean,
or do you thrive off it? You love that?
No, I thrive off it. Like it's not like a weird OCD like addiction or something. Like it's not anything like that. It's just for me, it's like if I'm going to do something, like I want to keep progressing at it. So if I don't keep progressing at something, I'm going to get bored with it.
Okay.
Like, for instance, so dirt biking. So a lot of my friends dirt bike forever, right?
Yeah.
I did it like 3 times and I was like, I'm not going to ride a dirt bike. I'm going to kill myself because I know myself and I'm not going to just like putt around every day, like I'm going to keep progressing. And all my friends like broke everything, they're breaking arms, like legs, collarbones. So it's like, I saw that as like, no, I don't want to go there. And then skateboarding, same thing. Like I eventually quit skating because I was like, I'm going to hurt myself bad. Like I'm alling like 10, 12 stairs, trying 180s. Like I didn't get to the point where I was doing anywhere near what people are doing now, but like I was pushing myself every day. Luckily, that whole time I skated, snowboarded, I'm gonna knock on wood, but I've not broke a bone yet.
Yeah, good.
I had crazy close calls where I thought it was going to be like, I've been so lucky in my life. I count my blessings and really honestly, like, I know I'm going to keep trying to progress and I have to say no to some things, and if I always said like, if I get hurt surfing, it's okay because I'm 100% dedicated to surfing. I love it. And I'll accept that for that sport. But I don't want to just go do some random new sport and then that can take me down a bad path. So,
surfing wise, have you ever, like say you're younger and you're totally into surfing, you're 13, 14 years old, get yourself in a heavy situation, like maybe waves are too big or you get to a new break that's shallow or there's a reef underneath? Because you were surfing beach breaks growing up. For
sure. I mean, first time I went to Indo, I remember I was so scared.
Oh, were you?
Reef. It took me a while. Yeah. I felt like I didn't get comfortable until it was like time to go home. Okay. Like it took me a while. And, Hawaii, I've had a couple scary experiences at sunset, not like reef stuff, but just big waves where I'm just like, if this wave breaks on me, I don't know if I'm going to come up. Like that kind of feeling. And I don't like that feeling. Like I really don't like it. Like I've never been a big wave surfer and I don't have any desire like to surf Nazare or like even Waimea. Like I just don't have any desire for that. Like I like head high to a couple feet overhead where I could still do airs. I could still do tricks. You still get caught inside and get pounded, but it's not like a life threatening kind of thing.
Right on.
This last time I went to Fiji, like this last year, I had at Cloudbreak, I got caught inside and it was gnarly. Like it was the first time in like over 10 years where I was like, I'm about to die. Like I'm about to get slammed on the reef. It was so shallow and like double overhead, double up was just grinding, about to break right in front of me, like 5 feet in front of me. Like I didn't even know what to do. Like everything was sucking out and it was sucking me into the trough. And I was just like,
oh no.
And I couldn't even believe it. And I duck dove it. I didn't know what to do. I was going to throw the board. And I was like, if I throw the board, it's probably going to pick me up and just slam me on the reef.
Yeah.
But then when I duck dove, I was so scared I was going to duck dive. And then I was going to hit my knuckles on the reef because it was so shallow. And luckily I got under it and I was able to like weave through and I came up. And then the next one was even worse. The next one was like foamy, double up, triple up. It looked like it was on dry reef. And I was just sitting there. So I like turned and paddled in a little bit to kind of get away from the impact zone. And then at the last second I turned and duck dove and I made it. And then I had one more. And I just remember going out and going, wow, it was the first time in like 10 years where I was like, I don't know what to do. Like, I didn't know if I should paddle in, paddle out. And it was a new place. I've never surfed there before. Haven't surfed reefs that sharp and gnarly in a long time because those reefs are gnarly there.
Wow.
I think even worse than Indo. Like it was really, really sharp. But
that's frightening. That's so frightening.
I mean, it still happens, you know. And so I just have tons of respect for the guys and the women that are charging like huge toe and stuff. It's crazy.
Right on.
Yeah.
Where do you see yourself, Jeremy, in 10 years?
10 years, I see myself having my businesses sustain like a freedom kind of lifestyle. So, you know, I want to be able to take my son, you know, around the world and travel and with my wife and really have him experience, you know, the things that I didn't experience when I was young and, you know, and just traveling, being free and being able to like go to awesome locations. And so that's the goal. That's the 10-year goal or 5-year goal is to get to that point and just share like amazing experiences, you know, with him and my family.
Yeah, that's awesome. Right on. Well, Jeremy, thank you so much for coming on the QuiverCast. It was fun, dude. I appreciate you coming on and sharing.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, man. I've been listening to your podcast for a while, so it's cool to finally be on.
Right on. Thank you. Thanks for listening. All right, everybody. This is Mike and Jeremy Ryan, and we are out of here. See everyone later. Thanks for listening.
I go right. Man, this wave is out of sight. Going surfing. Going surfing. Going surfing with friends. Ride this wave to the shore. Paddle out, I'm gonna catch 10 more. Going surfing. Going surfing. Going surfing with friends. I don't care if it's wrong or right. I'm gonna do it all day, I'm gonna do it all night. I'm going surfing. Going surfing. Going surfing with friends. Watching up on my way. It's a beautiful day. I'm going surfing. I'm going surfing. Going surfing with friends. Woo!
Hey, you guys. Endless Summer box set. This thing is legit. It's authentic. Numbered certificate in it. It has a 5-frame film strip from the original print. You will literally own a piece of history. It has a specially minted bronze medallion. Dude, that thing's sick. Okay, there's so much more here. Go to the show notes. There's a link on there. Go check this piece of history out. This thing's rad. Seriously. Smithsonian American History Museum has it. It took 4 years of research with 3.5 in production, all hand assembled. This thing's rad. So much to this awesome box set. Remastered DVD, sharper images than the original film, but dude, this thing's so sick. Link in the show notes.